The grip is a very scary topic for many golfers to talk about. They're very concerned when they change their grip that it feels really uncomfortable, or they think it's going to take a long time to get used to. But if you're a player that struggles with a directional miss, oftentimes your grip is playing a huge part. And especially for golfers that have played golf for a long time, that never took lessons, or for new players that have never properly been educated on how they should grip the golf club, gripping the golf club properly for a lot of us is the biggest opportunity to start hitting better golf shots, and that's what I want to talk about today. I don't believe that there's one specific way that every player should grip the golf club, but I think there's a couple matchups that we should consider and how that allows us to manage our club face in the golf swing. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Let's talk about the golf grip. All right, so there's two hands that connect us to this golf club, and I'm not so much going to dive in about whether it's 10 finger or interlock or overlap, because I believe that there's a little bit of variability there that is not as important about the way we actually put our hands on the club. There's a lead hand, which for me as a right-handed golfer is my left hand, and then there's also a trail hand. And both of those play a very important part. And if they're not matched up properly, they can work against each other a lot. So let's talk about the left hand first, or the lead hand. So for me, that'll be my left hand. There's a lot of content, especially a lot of older content, that talks a lot about when you put your thumb and your index finger together, that creates that V. And when you grip the golf club, we want that V that's created here to point towards your trail shoulder. I like that visual a lot, but more importantly, I want to talk about the knuckles on our lead hand. And what I want you to do is, right now I want you to grip your club, or I want you to grab something as if you're going to grip a golf club, and I want you to take your normal grip and set up to a golf shot. And what I want to know right now is, once you're in that position without really moving your head while looking down, how many knuckles do you see in your lead hand? You could see between 0 and 4, essentially, is the number that we see. And for a lot of players, especially players that struggle with an open club face, when they grip that golf club, the number that I hear a lot is 0. I normally see that thumb pointing straight down the shaft, and I normally see a gap between our index finger and our thumb, and we see no knuckles. And for a lot of players, that is textbook open club face. I don't know what knuckles are necessarily going to work for you. We're going to talk through it, but very, very, very rarely is that number 0. So the first thing I want you to take away for sure from today is, when we talk about our lead hand grip, I don't want any gap between our thumb and our index finger. Kind of the example that I use is, I don't want it to look like we have a lobster claw here. I want us to close that gap. So for sure, we cannot have a gap between our thumb and our lead finger. And if you have, right now when you sit up, if you have no knuckles showing, I need you to go and see a golf instructor. I need you to take a golf lesson, or you can take a lesson with me, and we need to talk about your grip. Usually the number that we see is somewhere between 2 and 3 knuckles, somewhere in that range. Let's say, for the sake of the example today, we're going to build off of 2. Hey, here's a little secret. Every week I send an email on Thursday mornings that gives you 3 things. It gives you 1 golf tip, it gives you 1 quote or stat, and gives you 1 little extra to help you play better golf and practice more effectively. To sign up, there's a link in my description. Make sure you get signed up, because on Thursday morning, the next one's coming. So if you get set up to a golf shot and you see 2 knuckles, and we can go back to that visual of this line pointing towards your trail shoulder, then we are off to a pretty good start with our lead hand. Now, an experiment you can do is, I'm going to set up to a golf shot here, and essentially I'm going to go through a couple feels. The first thing I'm going to do is, I'm going to set up with that no knuckle lead hand. So I get set up to a golf shot here. I don't have any knuckles showing on my lead hand. And I start to just make a half backswing. And what I notice usually right off the bat, which happens, which is very common, When we have no knuckles on that lead hand and we start to make our backswing, that club face starts to get pretty open. The other example we're going to try is we're going to go the other example. We're going to go all the way to the extreme. I'm really going to turn that lead hand over, and I'm going to set up as if I have 4 knuckles on my lead hand showing, and now I'm going to go ahead and make a backswing. And what we're going to see is there's a huge difference there between when I had 0 knuckles compared to 4 knuckles. This is that 0 knuckle takeaway, which is an open club face. And this is that 4 knuckle takeaway, which is a closed club face. This is an experiment that you can go through yourself to find out. Let's say, for example, you struggle with an open club face. You hit a lot of shots to the right, and you notice that your grip is a no-knuckle grip on your lead hand. I definitely believe there's an opportunity there in your lead hand grip. And if we can see a few more knuckles that set up and we can start to get that line pointing towards our trail shoulder, that there's a chance that we can improve our direction on our golf shots. So the takeaway for lead hand, I want you to set up to a golf shot, and I want you to find out how many knuckles are actually showing. You can post them in the comments down below. Let me know how many knuckles you have showing in your left hand grip. And as a little bit of an experiment for you, try that no knuckle setup and try that 4 knuckle setup for yourself and be able to see just in the takeaway if that club face is open or closed for you. Now, I know this is just a small piece of the puzzle, but it's definitely something I want you to consider. Let's talk about the trail hand. So the trail hand also plays a very important part. Usually for a lot of players, that trail hand will go on second, or I think most of them it has to go on second. So let's go back to that example now of, I guess we'll call it a neutral grip, and let's say we have 2 knuckles on that lead hand. Now our trail hand, for simplicity's sake, can go on 3 ways. It can go side, it can go on the side, it can go more on top, and it can go more underneath. Hey, thanks for watching this video. I just have a quick favor to ask. You make sure that you subscribe to this channel. Always like my videos, and make sure you hit that little bell to make sure that you get notifications when I drop more videos just like this. And as always, if you ever have any questions, please post them in the comments down below. I respond to every comment. Now back to your video. Now those 3 positions that the trail hand can go, again, built on top of a good left or a good lead hand grip, can drastically affect the way that that golf ball curves when we hit a golf shot. For a lot of players that are afraid of the slice, they're afraid of hitting that golf ball to the right if they're a right-handed golfer. I usually kind of laugh when I see them build, I guess what I'll call an anti-slice grip, where that player will set up with, let's say, 2 or 3 knuckles in their lead hand, and their right hand is very underneath. If they were to open up that hand, it would really look like it was very underneath, because as they come through, they really want to feel like that trail hand really rotates through that shot and really shuts that club face down so they do not miss to the right. But as a result, they hit a lot of hooks. And the same example when we see a player that gets a right hand that is very on top. Usually what that does when that right hand is more on top is it doesn't allow that club face to release as quickly, which if you fight a hook, might help keep the ball in line. The test I want you to run through here, watch this example for me. Example number 1, I'm just going to grab this club from underneath. Okay, so it's in my right hand, it's underneath. Watch how much as I keep this stable, watch how much this club head wants to rotate. Okay, looks like I'm getting roughly about 90 degrees of rotation. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from underneath to on top. I'm going to put my right hand on top in this orientation. Now watch what happens. There's not nearly as much rotation available based on the way I put my right hand on the club. So the experiment that I want you to go through, let's get our lead hand organized, and our trail hand we're going to experiment in 3 different positions. Position number 1, we're going to call it underneath. Okay, so you're really going to feel like when you're coming underneath with that right hand. And if you were to open your hand right now, you would see that it feels really underneath. Let's get that underneath position, and let's rehearse that takeaway. And what I see a lot of when I see a lot of underneathers is I see a club face that's pretty closed. Now let's go the other way. I'm going to keep that 2-knuckle lead grip, and I'm going to feel like my right hand is very on top. So if I was to open it, I really feel like my right hand is on top. And again, when I start to take that club back, just because of the way that right hand is on the club, I start to see that club face be a little bit more open than when that right hand was underneath, wanting to get that club face a little bit more closed. The third position we'll do is we're going to go neutral. 2 knuckles and neutral. So neutral, we'll call it side on with that right hand. And then I just want you to go ahead and take a backswing. And what you notice there, the difference, the underneath, that face was closed, the on top, that face was open, and that side on, that face was a bit more neutral. Why am I saying all this? Because for you and for every golfer out there, there's a matchup between your lead hand and your trail hand. There's a combination of how many knuckles you should have showing in your lead hand and whether your trail hand should be on top, on the side, or underneath. Do I know which one is perfect for you? Without seeing that grip, I do not. But something I want you to consider is, once you're done watching this video, whether you're in your garage, your living room, you're on the driving range, I just want you to do a little bit of moving around, a little bit of experimenting in your hands, and maybe see if we can start to put some pieces together on why you have the directional miss that you have and what possibilities it is that it's the grip that is causing that. And the example that we have is we had on that lead hand, we had the no knuckle example to the 4-knuckle example. And on the right hand, we had the underneath, and the right hand we had on top, and then we had on the side. There's a combo between a number of knuckles and an orientation of your trail hand that works for you and the way that you swing the club. And if you haven't considered your grip in the process of changing your golf swing or in the process of improving your golf swing, I think you're making a massive mistake. And it's something that you should probably consider first. Because let's say you're trying to stop coming over the top, or you're trying to start to come more from the inside. There's a realistic possibility that your grip might not be matched up for that move you're trying to make, and that could make you hit it worse. So let's not fall in that trap. Let's consider the grip, and maybe at a bare minimum, let's do a little bit of experimenting with how we set our hands on the golf club, and just checks at the very start of the backswing, just in that takeaway. Do you start to notice a club face that closes down, or do you notice a club face that starts to open up, and how that might play with the miss that you have in your golf game? I hope this video helps. As always, if you have any questions, please post them in the comments down below. I'd be happy to help. If you want to get a hold of me specifically, you can hunt me down. My email address is ryan@robelartofgolf.com. Happy golfing.